Chapter 1581. Invitation. Carl was handing ice cream from the clerk to the kids when the bell rang to mark a new customer, and the man known locally as the Moron waved a greeting to him. "Hey Swag, how's your afternoon going?"
Carl asked.
Good, good. I heard that you might be looking to go on an outing soon. The Dana Mage is almost finished her immortal spirit, and I've spent the last of my clan credits, so I'm looking for another outing. He explained. Carl smiled. I think that we can arrange something. There are always people looking to go out, and I've got a fairly solid base of immortals for my group. The Moron nodded in agreement. Yes, I met one of them earlier. She was with the Blue Elves having a heated debate about the best arteries to cut if you wanted to make an example of someone. That sounded pretty average for Ray, but not for most other people. Maybe she made friends with similar interests? If you want to go with my usual group, I can arrange that too. There are about 10 of us who like to work together because we have complementary skills, and then we just join with an Ascended Immortal and his core group for larger outings. But there is a spot that would be perfect for 12 lower rank members if we can find an Elder or Ascended group leader for the duel. Swag suggested. Oh, what sort of location? We could have Miss Opal here record everything, and then show off our glorious victory as training materials for the youngsters when we return. Carl suggested. There is a dungeon opened at Alhos starting soon. It opens 1 week a month, with limited spots. It's a bit of a trip, but they have a portal array that New Home can link to. Portal distances are severely limited on this continent, but that's still within our limitations. Oh, how I miss the days when I could just pop between continents for lunch. Or when continents were only a few thousand kilometers across. This planet is as inflated as the egos of some of the dual champions. Carl laughed at the man's dismay. Indeed, this immortal world was massive, easily 10 times the size of the one that Carl had come from. How that worked with a very similar gravity level was a mystery, but Carl suspected that it had more to do with magic and fundamental rules than physics. That would be perfect. My Dana will have her immortal spirit finished right away, and then we can all go as a group. How many people does the dungeon allow in at a time?
Carl asked.
20 to a group. But it sets the difficulty by the level of the strongest, so we can't bring the Ascended Immortal in with us, unless we're feeling huge. So, a group of 21, including our dual champion, is perfect. Asking for them to just stand around and wait for us must be an expensive proposition. Carl noted. Swag nodded. Indeed. It usually costs 10 clan credits to get them to come with us to fight the duel. But they don't always just wait. If they have friends among the other clans or teams, they'll group up and do it together once the access issues are settled. That made much more sense to Carl. Who would want to waste a whole day just standing around? If the issue was that they didn't have a 20-person team at their power level, they could arrange a group after they were there and go as soon as their juniors were gone. If things went sideways later, thanks to a sketchy group member, that was a different issue. But they would have already fulfilled their obligation to the juniors and had their chance to get rewards from the dungeon. It was not nearly as organized as the Xylaz region with its annual tournaments. But it wasn't a terrible system, and it would let him meet more people than just the members of the New Home Merchant clan. Possibly friendly members of other clans as well, or ones with rare and interesting skills for him to investigate. He needed more of his own distinct skills and fighting styles so that he wasn't just relying on what he learned from the beasts to keep up with everyone else. Sure, he was strong, but he really was the one slacking on new skills. Ironically, he even had a skill for making skills and a skill for combining skills, and he was still slacking. But once he learned a combat style skill, he should be able to combine it with a few other skills to make something that was truly his. Dana moved to stand beside them. I will actually have my immortal spirit stabilized by the end of the day. It's very close now, and I just need to feed it a bit more energy to keep it from trying to detach. If you want to leave in a few days, that shouldn't be an issue. We will just need to let the school know that the little ones will be absent so that they can come along and play in the dungeon. Don't worry, as long as they enter inside their separate space, dungeons and other system trials count the bonded beasts as part of Carl, so they don't mess up the count. The silly grin that Swag gave them immediately made Dana understand why everyone just called him the Moron. That smile spoke of a man with 2 brain cells, both fighting for third place. But he had the ambition and he had the rest of a team, as well as the connections, so there was no real harm in going with him. If they weren't actually capable, they wouldn't have agreed to go with him more than once. That's wonderful. I will let you know the moment that the dungeon opens, and we can all go out for an adventure. I'm getting so close to advancement, I can feel it. Then he rushed out of the ice cream shop. The door slammed shut behind him as he skidded to a stop, holding up a smushed cupcake wrapped in wax paper. He had no idea how that got in his pocket, but it smelled pretty good. It must be his lucky day. Free food. Chapter 1582. Eager Opal. All the kids sorted themselves at the tables in the shop, while Dana and Carl waited outside with the other parents, giving them a small measure of privacy to chat with their friends outside the school setting. You're really going to go with him and his friends? They're kind of weird. One of the mothers informed them. I don't see why not. They go together all the time, and they don't have a reputation for losing members, so they have to be somewhat competent. I've seen already that the moron routinely has clan credits. Only 1 or 2 at a time, but he comes into the alchemy shop every few days. Warriors don't have to be smart. They just have to smash things good. The mothers of Leo's new friends laughed. Well, I suppose that you have a point there. But that dungeon should be a good opportunity for the two of you. It has great rewards for the difficulty level, and it's known to drop rare resources. Some dungeons are more known for their items, but that one has you fighting against a demon clan. They use resources to grow their power, I'm informed. So, when you defeat them, there is a chance you'll get alchemy resources, power-boosting relics, or even system tokens that grant special abilities and opportunities. That's why he wants to go there so much. He might not be the sharpest crayon in the box, but he has full faith in the system to take care of him and grant him whatever it is that he's lacking to advance. One of the others made a protective gesture. Gods help the world if he actually does it. That idiot as an ascended immortal or a supreme would be a disaster. Others might think that he was actually onto something and not just relying on luck. On Carl's shoulder, Opal giggled softly. If he's relying on luck and system boons to grow, then going with us is the best thing that he could do. Who has better luck with system resources than we do? She joked. Plus, we will get to show off in a dungeon. I bet that I can show off my crocolisks in there. Leo agreed. A giant turtle and a pair of 20-meter-long immortal rank crocolisks would be quite the frontline force, even without Dana and Carl's forces to assist them. Your Leo seems like he's quite the well-behaved sort. How did you end up adopting a Tortolin druid? One of the ladies asked. The Tortolin form is a transformation spell that I granted him. He's actually a false island giant turtle hatchling. I got him as an egg, and he's been with me since he hatched. He's really quite young, and that's why we didn't have him in school yet. Carl explained. Oh, I knew that the badger was actually a chaos beast, but I didn't think that you had another legendary beast with your group. Opal laughed, catching the lady's attention. We've got Lady Ray, and Tion as well. Even if you don't count the spider as a legendary beast, Tion is a stone-fur divine fox. That has to count. Tion yipped with laughter, and the woman smiled. Tion can't count as a combatant. He's too cute. What is his specialty, anyhow? His species should be holy and earth magic users, right? Opal nodded.
Yep.
He's our secondary healer, since Remy has such good healing totems. But Leo can use nature magic healing as well. So, it's hard to say. But Leo is definitely our tank, since he can use bulwark. We've got lots of healing, but Tion can also attack with earth spikes and stone bullets. They also didn't usually need much healing, with Carl granting everyone such impressive regeneration and the eternal lightning barrier. They simply didn't take much damage. It sounds like your group is pretty well-rounded. You've got healers, tanks, crowd control, a golem mage, and whatever it is that Carl does in a real fight. Opal turned to Carl with a mischievous smile on her face. That's a good question. What does Carl do in a real fight? I suppose it depends. Sometimes he goes all dragon and smashes stuff, sometimes he just throws around spells for fun. Tion looked up from his cup of ice cream and nodded. The Carl can do all sorts of things. So, he does whatever nobody else is doing. Then, He licked his face clean and returned to his attempt to clean the cup entirely of any ice cream residue. All right, the kids are done eating. Thank you for buying them all a treat. We will see you at the school tomorrow. The group split up for the evening, but Kara and Leo had other plans. We should all go to the cafeteria for dinner. We can meet more people that way. Not just students, who aren't going to get to go outside to play, but other immortals who are in their adventuring phase.
Kara suggested.
That's not a terrible idea. I've made an advancement, so showing up in public like that will let everyone else have a chance to notice. Just in case they were looking for group members. However, it might lead to being swarmed by people looking to have something made. Carl warned. New people and loot? What is not to like about that?
Kara asked. All right.
Let's go back to the apartment for a few hours while Dana works on her immortal spirit, and then we can go. I'll upgrade the gathering rune in the house so that she can do it more quickly. I learned a trick to that when I was doing mine with the monk. Carl agreed. Dana didn't know what sort of trick he might be referring to, but a rune to regenerate soul energy wasn't a bad idea. It would let her make much faster progress in the formation of her spirit. Perhaps she could make the advancement before dinner? Carl had managed to go from nothing to fully formed and starting on the void state transformation in only a few hours using whatever technique he had learned from the monk. Chapter 1583. Assisting Dana. Back in their apartment, Dana sat on the comfortable beanbag chair with her legs crossed and focused on transforming soul power as Carl worked on the rune to convert immortal essence to soul energy for her to absorb. Helping her regenerate was easy enough to add to the runestone, but still Carl felt that it could use a little something to help Dana make the conversion before dinner. Haint, why don't you come out and play? Dana could use a little help.
The Haint was happy to comply.
With a soul bond, Dana was practically an extension of Carl. Strengthening her made him stronger as well. So, she came out and began to gently pour some of her remaining stored soul energy into the meditating mage. Nowhere near the rate that Carl had drawn it at, but Dana didn't have far left to go. She just needed a bit more energy in her immortal spirit to stabilize it. The basics were already formed. Dana felt the outside power flowing into her, and wondered just what it was that Carl had done while she was working. This felt like refined soul energy, and very familiar. Not like something that had come from a runic array, but she still integrated it into her immortal spirit, helping build the energy level high enough that it was stable without constant attention. Carl finished the rune stone and activated it, then immediately began to make another. He would save them as gifts for the elders. The elders didn't actually need them, but they could put them in the reserved spots for their disciples, or use them as rewards for special achievements by new immortals. Anything that he made was worth having a spare for, given how popular they all were. The new home merchant clan really did need to do more to gather crafting talents, but Carl could see that the clan leader had a different vision. She treated the clan more like a newbie zone for immortals. She collected them, helped them get settled into the world, and guided the clan to gather resources for them. Then, she let them grow free on their own. It was an odd practice, but Carl could see the logic behind it. Some people collected cats, stuffed animals, or trinkets. She collected new immortals, and when they were no longer new and cute, she wasn't concerned by what they did. Or, she was looking for something particular and none of the newbies she had collected had the potential for it. That was also a definite possibility. When you had forever, you could devote centuries or millennia to researching and hunting for rare things. Lady Matilda had done that on his old world, so it wouldn't surprise Carl if that was actually a common trait for supreme-ranked beings. Though, given his current class abilities, he might be the worst of them once he gained the power. He did have a power designed specifically to keep absolutely anything as a pet. How much better could it get for a bored immortal? It was practically a hoarder's wet dream. Dana's aura was shifting as she completed the stabilization of her immortal spirit, and Carl could feel the difference between where she was now and where she was an hour ago. The raw essence of her being was tucked away, protected by the immortal spirit. Now, they were definitely ready to go out. The question was more about who should go with them on the trip. The beasts formed an immortal spirit as soon as they advanced. So, they could all go, other than Thor, who had other things to do at the moment. However, Leo had friends at school, and Remy was busy with her alchemy work. So, They might not want to come along on the trip. Dana thought differently. Leo definitely wanted to come along so he could show off to his new friends. The other kids in first grade never got to go on adventures with their family. Carl finished a third soul energy gathering array stone and addressed the group, who were all lounging around the main room, while Opal put on a reenactment of Lotus and Button in dragon form trying to sneak into the Tiny World school to inspect the eggs. The eggs in the tiny world were getting very close to hatching, so Carl was going to have to act soon if he wanted to help them upgrade. Breath of the World would evolve the baby dragons into ones with better potential, and it might give them an increase in constitution. Giving them a better chance at immortality would make all the caretakers happy, and he would eventually be able to let them wander the world as immortal dragons. The druids and green dragons would be overjoyed. As if thinking of baby dragons had summoned them, Carl heard a knock at the door and saw Brother Chin's spirit through the wall. Coming. What's up, Brother Chin? The tiny white dragon flapped into the room and then collapsed on the table with a sigh of relief. Being small is exhausting, and I needed somewhere to hide from Min. I wanted to get some items from the warehouse and barely left with my life. Carl laughed. She's not going to actually hurt you. Just cuddle you a little. Or a lot. But you're just in time. We're going to head to the cafeteria for dinner in a few minutes to show off Dana finishing her immortal spirit. Swag wants to go on an outing when the dungeon at Alhoz opens, and I thought that we would meet his group since yours is in recovery mode. Chin bobbed his tiny head. That's not a bad idea. His group is pretty solid. With your assistance and some pickup members, you should be fine. But being in the cafeteria when I'm being stalked by an invisible cat sounds stressful. Carl laughed, and Opal flew over to greet the dragon. Fear not, we have the perfect tactic. Tion loves attention, so we can distract the green dragons with him while you eat. Chapter 1584. Distract the Dragon. Another knock at the door made Opal laugh, while Brother Chin frantically waved for her to stop.
Men.
Welcome to our house. I am Opal, and I will be your concierge of fluff today. The druid transformed back into humanoid form and smiled at the tiny fae. I don't think that we have met. It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Opal. If I'm right, you're a fae trickster butterfly, right? Opal spun in a graceful pirouette in the air and bowed to the dragon. Indeed. Freshly evolved and advanced. I'm with Carl's team, you see. Did you want to watch our show? We're watching a comedy drama about two young dragons trying to sneak into a red dragon orphanage-controlled hatchery. Min looked confused for a second, then saw the illusion in the other room. That is a wonderful use of your skills. Such creativity. All right, let's go watch. I have drinks. And just like that, she was completely sidetracked from her mission of finding Brother Chin. He could only marvel at how well the butterfly managed to handle an excited green dragon and slumped on the table in relief. He could finally get some rest before dinner. That psycho from the PDA kept showing up at his dorm in the church and demanding that he bring out the child so they could attend class as required, and never accepted that he wasn't actually a child, just temporarily small. Overall, this had been an extremely stressful experience for him, and the only spot that he could safely go without his friends, letting one troublemaker or another come to bother him, was to Carl's group. In a way, this was their fault anyhow. If they had waited and called an elder, he would have been in a full-sized body with a damaged soul and power level. Instead, he was in a tiny body with an intact but childish soul, and he was starting over. It was a great chance to correct mistakes that he had made during his last journey to immortality, but it was still not nearly as enjoyable as he had hoped. The show came to an end when the matron caught the two interlopers and turned them over to Ophelia, which was Min's cue to spring back into action. So, are we all going to dinner? Now that we're here, we should get something to eat. It is Meatloaf Day at the cafeteria if you want to eat there. I get that it's the free meal option and not so fancy, but it's really good. She suggested. That was actually our plan. We were going to meet Swag and his team there and show off Dana's completion of her immortal spirit. That's got to be close to a time record. Definitely worthy of showing off. But mostly, we wanted to see who we were working with before we agreed to go on a trip with them. Carl explained. Swag?
Oh.
Him. All right, we can go visit. I heard that there are a bunch of teams going to the dungeon opening, so they'll be fighting over which ascended immortals and elders go to duel on their behalf. It should be a great show today, as they all argue about what sort of group they'll take. 20 per team, all at the same rough power level, isn't easy to arrange, especially when you need a healer and at least 2 tanks. Nobody wants to be the tank. Carl shrugged. It's a universal problem. Fortunately, we have the option to use golems to tank, so our group gets off easy. Min raised one eyebrow in a look of disbelief. You're not going to volunteer to be the tank? Despite your durability, you're going to make the Dana mage use golems to tank. Dana laughed and shook her head. Not at all. He can use his own golems to do the work. He's perfectly capable of creating a pair of suitable golems for nearly any situation. I might have more golems, but that's not my role in a dungeon group. So, there are more golems? Opal giggled. With me there, we have all the golems. But yes, half the group can use at least one golem-type spell. Even Leo can use them. Did you know that he showed them off for his classmates in training period at school? Min smiled.
Oh, yes.
I heard all about young Leo summoning a pair of crocolisks to support him in class. I didn't know that they were golems, though. They were technically greater golems. I don't know if Leo can use the bodyguard spell that Remy knows, but that wasn't what he cast at the school. That is wonderful. A young turtle needs good bodyguards. Fortunately, he has Hawk around. Attacks by birds are the most common cause of injury among young turtles. Min replied seriously. Perhaps in the wild, Leo thought. But he had it good. He could hide in his space, or just go indoors so they couldn't attack him from further away than he could retaliate. The false island giant turtle could float, but they weren't fast. Mostly, they just relied on their immense size to make things give up on trying to damage them. In fact, birds rarely attacked his species even when they were adolescent. They preferred to use the giant creatures as a perch, and it wasn't uncommon for older turtles to have whole colonies of birds living in the forest on their backs. So, he hadn't inherited as much of the innate fear of birds that most turtles did, only a healthy caution of all things flying or fast-moving. All right, do we have everyone? The dinner service is about to start, and if we're going to get good seats, it would be best to arrive early. Dana warned. Ray examined their group. We still need a few minutes. You can't go out looking like that. I have fresh clothing for everyone. Opal cheered. This was her first chance to get genuine clothing from Ray. Before, she didn't have a body style that suited it. And then, after she transformed, she just used an illusion to create clothes. Chapter 1585. Good timing. Opal admired the new white dress that Ray made for her. It was light and soft, with short, wide sleeves that fluttered in the breeze from her wings. Very impressive. There were so many options available in Ray's wardrobe selection, but a nice simple dress was Opal's preference so that her outfit didn't distract from the glory that was her wings, which looked nearly the same in either form. That was the important part. So, she was sure to keep them spread and visible as she shifted to sit on top of Dana's head for the trip to the cafeteria. Dana was shorter, so more people would be able to see her clearly there, and being framed between a pair of fox ears would naturally attract people's attention. It helped that she was also holding Tion. Dana laughed at the vain butterfly as they walked down the street, and then laughed harder as Hawk came out in demon crow form to sit on Carl's shoulder. Kara and Leo were holding hands and swinging their arms back and forth as they walked, in the fashion of children everywhere. They might look like the world's most dysfunctional family, but they had everyone who was immortal out for the trip, as even Remy had returned, and was draped around Ray's neck as the two discussed blood wine upgrades for the immortal world. There wasn't any available in the clan that Remy could find, but there were sure to be vampires in this world, and they would definitely want the good stuff as much as Ray did. Carl came to a sudden stop as he rounded the final corner before the cafeteria, nearly getting run over by the others as they came up on another large group. Swag and his team had the same idea that Carl did. They had arrived early for dinner so that they could get good seats, in case Carl's team was late. Oh, it's you. Perfect timing. I have brought my core team members. These are Lisa and Leanne, our mages and primary damage dealers. The forest dragon is Khalid, our healer. He got a new class from the obelisk thing, so he's a special druid now. And this is my best friend, Bert. He's our crowd control specialist. Carl, Dana, Opal, Tion, Ray, Remy, Hawk, Kara, and Leo. Then we have Brother Chin and Min. But I'm not sure if Brother Chin and Min will be going out with us. They were visiting the house when it was time to eat. Swag waved at the ones he knew, then mentally calculated their options. I don't see class colors for any of your team, except you and Dana. Does that mean they don't have system skills? Carl shook his head. No, they piggyback off my class abilities and have their racial skills, plus the other ones I've taught them. They're not short on skills. But if they're in their space, not out in the open, the dungeon counts them and me as only one member of the group. So, we can totally overpower an instance together. Carl led the way into the dining hall, and the conversation paused as they loaded up plates, including a huge pile of meat for Hawk, who was waiting eagerly on Carl's shoulder. Isn't this nostalgic? Just like when we started getting heaping piles of meat from the kitchen. Carl joked, but cooked now. So good. Hawk agreed, as he used his beak to dunk a portion of roast meat in his new favorite berry syrup. Swag stared at the bird for a moment, and then went and got a small bowl of syrup. Hey, that's actually pretty good. Why did I think that syrup was for pancakes? I have been misled. I'm quite certain that syrup is intended for pancakes. This is an off-label use, no matter how good it is. Now, I see that we have an advanced mage class of some sort and a shimmering something. I'll assume that it's related to the variety of beasts you have. So, do we need another healer? Bert asked. No, Tion and Remy both have solid healing skills, and Leo can heal to some extent, as has an affinity for nature magic. Khalid, the druid, smiled. Oh, that's wonderful news. Finding another healer around our power level is a pain. You've both just finished your immortal spirit development, right? I just want to make sure that we're not going to end up with a power imbalance. Carl nodded. Yes, within the last day. So, if none of you are far into the void stage, we should all be very close. They all shook their heads. The conversion isn't easy. Khalid has started, but he's only at the earliest stages. None of the others have managed it so far. Lisa and Leanne are still looking for a special skill book before they change their class as well, so we're in dire need of this outing. Hopefully, you bring us good luck. We did find someone to escort us for the duel, so that is a good start. We will just need more members. These 5 are our core, and you've got 2 that count to the system. So, 13 more members for the run. Unless the uninjured members of Chin's team want to join, that would bring us to 10. Brother Chin shrugged. I will ask the others what they want to do. I need time, as does Jeff. So, Jin's team is short some people. He's a lot stronger than your team is, though. Not a great option for this outing, since it power balances to the strongest. Right, I forgot that he'd gotten so far ahead of me. Well, that's alright. When my super hidden skill finally procs, I will move straight to supreme ranked, no problem at all. I admire your confidence. With the proper favor of the system and the gods guiding it, nothing is impossible. It's all about patience and faith, right? Carl agreed. A number of the other clan members laughed at his assessment of Swag's strategy. They had zero faith that he was on the right path by ignoring the teachings of everyone who came before him. But that had never stopped him before. Chapter 1586. Get him an instrument. The dungeon is open now. It opened 5 minutes before dinner service started. So, we can finish building our team and head out tomorrow if none of you have anything else planned. Swag suggested as he finished his syrupy dinner. I will come with you if you have space. I've got plenty of vacation days left from my time at the warehouse, so I can go on outings to get loot without needing to find someone to cover for me. Min offered. Oh, that will be perfect. Another stealth class is always handy. Lady Ray is a stealth type as well. So, that's 3 of us for the team. It should be enough to draw enemies to the main group in most scenarios. Is there any news on what sort of monsters it has spawned this time? Swag shook his head. Nothing yet. The first groups haven't come back out yet. Give it a couple of hours, and they should have some news for us, so that we can prepare. Or we can go before they get out and get the jump on everyone else who is trying to tailor their team to the challenge. Ray suggested. That's also a valid option if we can find enough people.
Hey,
Anyone want to go to the dungeon in Alhos with us? Peak Spirit Immortal team, and we've got tanks and healing covered. He shouted. That was unnecessary. The room was still fairly quiet, with everyone eating dinner and planning for their evening activities. A few groups looked horrified at the thought of going with the moron. But some of them looked intrigued, and a few were considering it just because the group was going with Carl. The new guy had quite a reputation as a fighter, and they wanted to know just how that translated into fighting within a dungeon. After a moment, a group of wolf-eared men stood up. We will go with you. If there is one thing that Lycans love, it's a challenge. So, we will come try out the dungeon with you. We've got 10 members, with 1 cleric and 4 rangers. Perfect. We've got 2 spaces left if anyone else wants to join us. Brother Chin looked at his group, but Alicia shook her head. We're going with a Void stage group tomorrow. She whispered. I'll go with you. Why not? I got a new class from the Obelisk and I'd like to test it out. Jacob, a feral protector druid according to his nameplate, called. Last spot? If not, we will go 1 short. The Monster Man's beasts will make up the numbers for us. Ray laughed quietly. Once she started summoning undead, they would have more people than they had ever wanted in a dungeon. Tion panicked in Dana's arms. Wait. I need an instrument, a string instrument. My new skill won't work right without it. Swag turned to him. You got a new skill? What is it called? Vicious Mockery. Everyone nearby began to laugh at the thought of the tiny fox taunting monsters into a rage. It was definitely going to be super effective, especially if he was planning to poorly play an instrument while he mocked them. Trade me 2 clan credits and I have a rare grade zither. One of the clan members joked.
deal.
I can get more clan credits, but we shouldn't wait any longer. Carl agreed. The young woman smiled at Tion as she brought him the instrument. I will come along with you, too. I have to see how such a cute fox uses Vicious Mockery. Her class was warrior, so Carl didn't expect much other than 1 more body. But she had kept the instrument, so she might have some skills in the musical realm that would help Tion put his string instrument mastery into practical use. Wait, the tiny fox is on the bard path. We're definitely going to need to know how this goes. Is he going to transform? Because Tiny Fox Boy Mockery would be too adorable to miss. One of the older-looking women joked. Opal smiled. I will memorize it and put on a show when we get back. Butterflies are good at that sort of thing. The crowd in the dining hall cheered. We'll be counting on you. There can never be enough stories about fluffy fox ears, and if it's Tion taunting people, we definitely need to see it. That will be a comedy that the clan will remember for years. Tion giggled, and then set his new instrument on the edge of the table. Deft claws, blunted with rounded stone guards using earth manipulation, plucked a haunting tune on the zither, and a sense of immense power filled the room as the instrument's enchantment activated. It was supposed to boost the effect of skills used through it, but the only one that Tion was using was string instrument mastery. Alright, he's actually good at that. And with a bit of work, I can see him being a proper bard, in an elegant sort of way. Swag noted. I will find him more skills when we get back from the mission. Who knew that the fox would be a natural? A few of the other immortals sighed at Carl's limited worldview. Of course, foxes were naturals at the Zither. All things alluring and romantic were natural to their species. Even without a skill for it, a divine fox would pick up the art of playing the zither in a matter of hours. It wasn't his specialty, they assumed. But having the fox take up some bard skills would give him an excellent chance at unlocking a whole new set of skills. Still, nobody else was too concerned about that. They wanted to see the comedic drama of the fox girl and the pup going on an adventure in the dungeon, where the little fox mocked their opponents as a damage skill. They didn't even care if that was the only skill that he had. Chapter 1587. Get Past the Challenge. Lisa, one of the 2 mages in Swag's group, rose to her feet as everyone finished eating. I know the location, so I can open a portal straight there. Did anyone need anything before we go?
She asked.
Carl shook his head. No, I think that we should be good. Let's get in and get the issues settled before things get too hectic over there. Do we have our dual champion? An assassin class awakened immortal stood to join them. I will take care of the duel for you and find a group once I'm finished. I don't think that they will hassle us too hard about the entry, since we're regulars to the area. But you never know. Lisa opened the portal, and Carl stepped through first, only to find himself catching a flying dragonkin. You're cute, but you're not my type, sorry. Carl's apology made the man laugh. Thanks for the catch. That berserker throws harder than expected, and I couldn't stop myself before I reached the platform. The man was very close to peak immortal, and Carl saw that his opponent was a similarly powerful werebear, who was standing in a round stone combat ring 10 meters away. Why they had put the combat location so close to the designated arrival area for portals, he had no idea. But there was likely some practical consideration. Or they could just enjoy trying to throw each other through someone else's portal to see where the defeated challengers end up.
Kara suggested.
Knowing human nature, that was entirely possible. I hope that you brought a proper champion. The big man is looking for a fight. The Dragonkin warrior explained as he straightened his damaged armor. Indeed we did. But if the big man doesn't approve, we can buff him a bit first. The berserker laughed. You think that you can do something that will make him worth fighting? I think so. At the very least, we can make it a good challenge for you, as long as our team's champion doesn't see it as an insult to his skills. The assassin was powerful, but definitely not on the peak immortal level. No, I'm interested to see what you can do as well. Buff me up, and I will fight it out while you run the dungeon. Carl smiled as he applied haste, terrorize, and brutality to the assassin, doubling his size, strength, damage, agility, and attack speed. Alright, give it a go. I think that should be enough to get you started. The berserker laughed as he realized that Carl had increased the size of his opponent, as if that was going to make any real difference. But that was only a side effect of brutality, which doubled his strength. For a rogue-type class, it was haste and the massive increase in speed and agility that was going to make the most difference. Their champion already had a lot, so a 100% buff was no small bonus. Don't leave yet. I want to see if you gave me someone worth fighting. If you didn't, you don't enter. The berserker insisted. Carl nodded, while Swag merely looked curious to see how this fight went. Do you think that he will be able to do it? Bert whispered. If I doubled your attack and movement speed, how much of a gap could you make up? Well, you'll see anyhow. I'll cast it on the whole group once we're inside.
Carl whispered back.
Their champion moved to the ring, and then vanished as he launched his first attack. The berserker spun his axe, and sparks flew as he parried. Then blood flew as a blade made it through and clipped his leg. Then his back. The big man roared as he stomped, and a skill knocked the rogue out of stealth. The assassin was a blur of movement as he attacked again, and the berserker was forced into a full defensive pattern. That's your cue. Go ahead and enter. Nobody will say that you didn't bring a proper challenger. The Dragonkin warrior that Carl had caught earlier whispered. He was more concerned that if they stayed here, people would start thinking of trying to recruit Carl away just for the buffs. A good support class was nearly as difficult to find as a good healer. He had considered it, but once he saw Carl's name through the system interface, he knew that it would only invite disaster to his sect. They were all Order God followers, devotees of the celestial gods. Bringing a world dragon avatar into their ranks would likely make the elders cry tears of frustration. Before the sect kicked them both out. Hey, do you know what we're heading into?
Carl asked.
The Dragonkin shrugged. Not a clue. Nobody has come out yet, and if they've sent a system message, nobody is sharing. That was excellent timing on their part, then. They had arrived before anyone knew for certain what sort of challenge they should be building teams for. Swag motioned for Carl to lead the way. You're lucky, so you go first. I'll pass you the group lead. Your system does that, right? Carl nodded. Indeed it does. He made sure that everyone was in the group and the beasts were in their spaces. Then he led the group through the dungeon portal. Welcome to the Alhos Power Challenge. Calculating peak group power. Void stage progression detected. Calculating combat power. Individual combat power score maximum detected. Adjusting difficulty. Carl read the messages and turned to the group. All right, I will take point to get things started. The golems can take up the front line with me, and then most of the beasts will fight from a distance, other than Ray and Kara. I think that everyone else knows their positions. There shouldn't be a need for a second tank until we get to a boss. The Lycans chuckled at his confidence. It hasn't even spawned the mobs yet, and you're already sure that you can handle the front line. Carl winked at him. With mirror images and tribulation chain, I won't have an issue. 3 world dragons take up a lot of space. Chapter 1588. Vicious Mockery. System difficulty set. Individual power output of member, Carl, used. Power level 9 standard units. Carl had no way to know if that was supposed to be good or not. He didn't know how much a standard unit was. Well, that sounds good? I have no idea what that means. Carl informed them. I've never seen it say that before either. Usually, it just tells us who is the most powerful and what level they're at. Swag agreed. We are so fucked. Cora, the warrior who sold Tion his news-ether, sighed. You know what it means? Nope. And that's why we're fucked. Seriously, seeing new things from the dungeon's intro message is never a good sign. Swag and Carl smiled at each other, and Dana smacked Carl on the back of the head. Don't get so excited. Call the team out, and let's get the golems started before the monsters arrive. Carl brought out the team, and then called for his base and greater golems, in Sero form, to represent Thor, who couldn't be there. Then the mobs arrived. The whole area changed, and a city of ruined obsidian buildings and thousands of demons appeared. Each of them gave off the aura of a newly ascended immortal, with 5 points of much stronger aura marking the bosses. Fuck, this is going to be so good. Swag sighed happily. Bert turned on him. That's because you're an idiot. What did Carl do that it standardized his strength an entire rank higher than his development? And how the hell are we supposed to fight that? The average trash mob is stronger than I am. Swag shrugged. It says we can do it though. Like it calculated and everything. It'll be fine. Carl called out a group of Lich Lords as his undead minions, then the Spectral Knights as the undead army, and finished with his bodyguards, Dark Elven Kings as epic golems, and then transformed into avatar form and cloned himself with mirror images. Alright, let's get this party started. Tion, do you want to do the honors? I know the ladies are eager to see your new skill in action. Carl suggested. I don't know what to say. The fox mumbled, only now realizing that he had to actually insult the demons for the skill to work. I've got this. I will demonstrate this time, and then you use it to pull the next group. Kara insisted. Then she moved in front of Carl and raised her voice. Hey, you limp-dicked son of a hashtag $% and at hashtag and hashtag at hashtag gnome worshipping at and hashtag and at dollar hashtag and hashtag underscore hashtag wingless hashtag dollar and hashtag at. My dead grandma is scarier than you. The demons' faces went from shocked to offended, then to absolute rage before they screamed and charged directly for her. Holy hell, I've never seen the system use a profanity filter on the translation function before. Swag cheered. I don't think I can say that with a straight face. Tion agreed. Start small, you'll do great. Just maybe use the last part or something like it. Dana offered. The demons were so mad at Kara that they actually tried to charge right past Carl and his clones to get to her, and the 3 dragons had to recruit the Spectral Knights to contain them. Ray giggled as she joined in. If she had known that it would be so effective to have Kara taunt enemies into battle, they could have done it earlier. Even if she wasn't using Vicious Mockery, that definitely would have worked. The spider leapt into battle, guiding her golems and undead to encircle the group. Only there was a small issue. Even fully buffed, the golems could only take 2 or 3 hits before being destroyed. Whether it was because Kara had enraged the monsters, or because the dungeon had cranked up the difficulty, she didn't know. But it was wonderful. Even with area healing from the druids and Remy, the golems were falling. Her golems never died. For the first time in what felt like forever, Ray had a real fight on her hands. Carl fought mostly using Chaos Vortex, the strongest of his new skills. But he was constantly pouring energy into Eternal Lightning to keep the barrier up on the golems as he summoned them back. The happiest one out of everyone was not Ray, however. It was a tie between Swag, who was in a vicious duel with a four-armed obsession demon, and the Haint, who was merged with the Epic Guard and sucking soul energy from everything with Soul Harvest. Dana transformed her golems with Warbeast, giving them an epic constitution and a huge damage boost, but still, she had to keep calling them back every few minutes. Carl smashed a demon to the ground with one massive paw and saw the body vanish as it finally died. Rewards granted. That wasn't the message that you usually got from a dungeon monster. That was the message you got from... He finally realized what was happening. He had an epic grade constitution and power level. The dungeon had made all the trash mobs dungeon bosses, and then the actual bosses one step above that. Perhaps the warrior was right. They just might be in trouble here. An obsession demon flashed past the front lines to attack Dana, who instantly parried the blow. That was Tion's signal to act. He had been playing a gentle song to buff his stone attacks with the instrument's ability. But he could sing a song for the demons. Demons will rage and skills will flow. Can't hit the mage when you're so fat and slow. Cora and the Lycans howled with laughter as the demon turned to face Tion. Did this tiny ball of fluff seriously just call him fat? He was going to murder it. Tion giggled as he fled between the creature's feet with his instrument clutched in his mouth. Then he stopped and strummed one more note. Ping, learn to wipe. Dana was laughing so hard that she almost failed to protect the little fox from the retaliatory strike. Chapter 1589. One big pull. Another of the demons fell, and the group began to notice that something was definitely off with the power level and rewards of this dungeon. That was the second time that everyone had gotten the boss completion loot notice, and they were on the first pull of the challenge. Not even Swag, who was infamous as the clan's biggest idiot, was willing to write that off as a coincidence. Especially not when he was fighting the demons in close combat. They were definitely boss monster level opponents, and only the fact that the golems had Warbeast cast on them to give them epic grade physiques was keeping them from simply overrunning the group. Leo slapped a demon with one massive flipper and reactivated Bulwark. These demons were tough for sure. It was a good thing he came along. He didn't have any idea that dungeons were such an intense experience, and this would be a great story for his classmates. He had even received a new tricorn hat already, so they had to believe him. Why are there 10 dungeon bosses in one pull? Someone called from Carl's left. I blame Kara. Her taunt pulled more than one group. I got that part. But why are they dungeon bosses? Kara laughed as she bombarded her target with Chaos Vortex, locking it in position with the time lock secondary effect of the spell. That's because Carl is a world boss, so it made them on his level. Now we get all the loot. Her laughter was infectious, and even the druids, who were struggling not to get crushed by the mobs, began to laugh along with the rest of the group. So, we get to fight a whole dungeon full of low ascended bosses? Just nothing but bosses and super bosses? What sort of dungeon is that? And are we going to get boss loot for every mob of every pull? Min asked, already calculating the windfall she was going to get. It didn't matter if she could use the items. She would make a fortune at the warehouse trading in what she didn't need. Then there was the chance that one of the others would also get something that she needed but they didn't and they could trade. It was quite common for groups to trade or assign boss loot. That might not be practical when you were going to fight 100 of them in a day, but they could certainly trade some items at the end of the day. Hey Opal, Remy, I think it's time that we made this place a bit more spicy, don't you think? Remy giggled from her perch around her bodyguard's neck. On it, boss. Hawk acted preemptively and cast Apocalypse, filling the area with flaming tornadoes and burning cinders before Remy could do the same with water magic. Then, he added meteors for effect. Remy laughed at Hawk's naive outlook. They were on the same team. Filling the area with fire didn't stop her from doing the same with ice. It just reduced visibility when she did. Then, She added a Naga Swamp that Opal buffed with Illusionary Domain, Reality Warp, and Toxic Fog before she added dozens of Naga warriors to it. She wanted to go bigger, but then they would overlap onto other groups and start pulling in more demons before she was ready for them. Leo cheered and gave all the new illusionary fighters stone form and invincible defense on top of the eternal lightning barrier that automatically spread. These demons weren't playing around. Even with Carl and Dana both using tribulation chains on them and Opal's toxic fog damaging their minds, they were still breaking free to fight as hard as ever. Rewards granted. Rewards granted. That was half the group in 3 minutes. That didn't seem like it was too long to Leo. But math wasn't his strong point, as there were enough other groups in the dungeon that they would be here most of the day, even without counting the boss fights. We're down to 1. Tion, how about you go get us some more monsters? Carl called. No problem. I know just how. Tion ran past the ongoing fight to the closest group of demons and began to play a zither, which made them turn to look at him. Then he stood on his hind legs, spread his front paws, and stuck out his tongue as he activated Vicious Mockery. Then he turned, wiggled his butt at them, and ran away. The demons roared and chased, while Dana tried to calm herself enough to effectively fight. Tion was catching on to the finer points of that skill far too quickly. This time there were only 3 more demons, a much more manageable number, and they were all picked up by Carl and his clones. Without extra bosses to fight, the damage could be concentrated, and nobody needed to worry much about one escaping and attacking the rear ranks. Not that it would be a catastrophe with Dana in place and auto-parry. But it was not time-effective to force everyone but the front line to focus on one of 10 opponents in the first pull. Rewards granted. Rewards granted. Tion didn't need a prompt this time, and he went to grab another group. This time, he didn't use Vicious Mockery, he just used Earth Manipulation and threw rocks at them from the pathway. That pulled them just as effectively. Brother Hawk can get the next ones there far. He called when the new batch joined the fight. Got it. I will make sure that we don't run out. He had done this with Ray before, and it was so much fun pulling just the right number of enemies.
Get more now.
They're not big enough if we just take 3 at a time. Half my summons can't even get to the front to fight properly. Ray's complaint made Hawk laugh, but he complied and immediately hit another group with a meteor, pulling them into the fight. You are all psychopaths. 1 boss fight at a time. It's not a speedrunning competition. Min joked. But it might be. How do we know if we don't try to set the record? Chapter 1590. Like a boss. Remy thought that Ray made a good point. They could expand the illusions and the swamp as they cleared more of the dungeon, and that let the summons and the illusions fight more freely. They were actually getting more effective as time passed. 6 was a good number for now, but if they rearranged the Dana Mage's parry golems, they could definitely do 9 at a time without them being out of range of the best area effects. It would eliminate the need to stack on a target and attack around other friendly fighters. But it wouldn't give them so many opponents that they were short on members to tank. Plus, with all the damage reduction that the Carl had, their healers were barely working. Of course, Carl was holding back on skill use, just keeping 1 active on his claws and spending the rest of his mana recovery rate on damage reduction spells and replacing golems. But that was working. They still had to replace golems every few minutes as the demons smashed through the barriers. However, that was within their mana regeneration abilities. Dana, assign one of your clones to each extra group. They both summon the good golems, and they can keep everyone distracted. Ray shouted as she leapt over an axe attack by a wrath demon, then Shadow stepped behind him to continue her assault. Seeing what Ray was going for, Dana instructed her clones to use Epic Golem, Blade Dance, and Golem Duplication as their 3 skills from her core abilities. Her own buffs would give them auto-parry, and she would manually buff them with War Beast to activate Crushing Constructs. Instead of her usual high damage output options, she had them summon Carnage as their epic golem. The Wrath Demon was tanky, large, and he had skills intended to knock opponents down, which would work well with Dana's new Tribulation Chains to keep the enemies from fighting back effectively. They were also tall enough that Ray could fight underneath their wings and attacks. It was just as good as having them out of the way entirely. The Lycans who had joined the group for a bit of a challenge stared at the mage in astonishment. She had just instructed her clones to summon 6 demonic dungeon bosses to fight the boss-level monsters in the dungeon. If she could do that, what sort of monster was Carl at full output that the dungeon didn't consider her to be their peak threat? The system took your skills into consideration as well as your raw power level, so it had to know that she could do that. Hawk pulled them another group of demons to keep the numbers up, and even Swag began to wonder what he had gotten himself into. This was not a dungeon run in the way that he understood it. It was a boss-mob blender, and it seemed to be picking up pace. Not just a little bit, like they were all getting used to working together. No, the damage output of the group members was definitely increasing with every fight. Was that a skill that someone on Carl's team had? Attacks that had made no noticeable difference to the demons' health when the fight started were beginning to knock them down a small but noticeable amount with every hit, and more powerful skills were taking definite chunks out of their health. How many more pulls to the first boss? Cora, their last-minute warrior edition, called as she got the final hit on a purple-winged demonic spellcaster. We'll do them at the end. The way that the dungeon is set up, Hawk can pull all the other demons to us here without disturbing the bosses.
Carl called back.
But that brought her to another important question. Why wasn't she tired? They had been fighting for the better part of an hour already, just constantly in combat. But nobody was showing any signs of exhaustion yet. That also wasn't normal. But Leo had Implacable, and he was spreading it to the whole group. While it was technically a resistance buff against sleep, confusion, and stamina loss, it was also effective for combating fatigue. Eventually, they would get hungry, but he could keep them from getting tired in the middle of a fight and slowing down. If they were going to keep the damage of Rampage up, they needed everyone doing constant damage. The skill had a time limit on how much damage it would stack, so there was no slacking allowed. Even if his role wasn't to do maximum damage. That's what he had the Crocolisks for. The great limiting factor was mana. Unlike Carl, the majority of immortals couldn't keep up a full barrage of skills constantly for hours on end. They would normally go hard for a few minutes, take a break to recover, and then go again on the next group of mobs in the dungeon. But Carl was constantly pulling, so they were being forced to scale back their mana use, either by reducing the power of their skills, or by using fewer of them. It was a very different fighting style than most of them were used to, but Swag was loving it. The chance to just constantly fight nothing but bosses, one after another, in a half-dozen different forms and skill sets, was incredible. This seemed like just the thing that he needed to trigger his hidden secret talent. For sure after this dungeon, he was going to get a huge reward. Then, the air seemed to shift, and a massive green plague demon, 10 meters tall and nearly as wide, appeared in their midst. The boss had left its platform. That was not something that should happen. The fact that the bosses stayed where they were allowed the teams to take time to recover before the biggest fights of the run. But this one had simply appeared as they were about to pull more mobs, with most of the team low on mana and not fully healed.